Hi, this is Nicole Birkholzer of Mindful Connections, and this is the Red Sofa series. My mission is to mindfully connect horses and humans, and with this show, I'll bring you expert perspectives on everything equine and mindful ponderings from our own backyard. May you be informed, inspired, and mindfully connected.
We were approached by the University of Massachusetts Extension Service about the possibility of obtaining a grant for pasture management and making some improvements with the hope of becoming a best practices test model farm. So one of the approaches that we've taken to the problem here is we researched and found Jamie Jackson's book on Paradise Paddocks and chose to implement some of those designs here. We understand that we have a large herd of over 30 horses. Most of them are draft horses, so our concerns are different than some of the smaller herds that we've seen in demonstrations of Paddock Paradise. So we have approximately a 6-acre parcel here where the horses, when they had been turned out, had basically stripped the paddock. We were overfeeding here, and then we have a stream running through. So we built this track system where we've isolated approximately 80% of the land that we're occupied here, and created this Paradise track. So we do have more horses on this than some of the other Paradise Paddock tests that we've seen. Now we have a horse inside this mini guy. He's not supposed to be in there, but he got under the gate.
Of course.
So we've just seeded a 2-acre portion in the center section, and of course it's just starting to rain now, which we like, and we're starting to see some of this grass seed pop up. We have another approximately 3/4 of an acre off to the right here that's also going to be protected. And
so those are the areas where you will let the horses out occasionally, selective horses.
Yes, for several hours a day. We just learned about the good time of day to do that. Early in the morning. I like that.
Right.
So.
And this is an electric fence?
This is a high tensile aluminum strand electric fence. That's right. Okay. And the aluminum was recommended as being horse friendly, because if they do get into it, the strands will break, as opposed to high tensile steel.
Okay.
And it wasn't inexpensive, but it's cheaper than rail fence, and
quick maintenance.
Yeah,
because rail fence is usually difficult.
And we like the wooden posts rather than the T-posts. I think it's a better approach for us. Because the horses still, if they find out that the fence is off, they'll still scratch their butts on it, and they'd want to knock it over if they had a chance.
So why don't we take a walk along here?
Just before we go, I just want to say that this is our watering zone here. This is the only place where water is available to our horses in this particular section. Previously, they had been able to go into the stream area.
Hi.
That mystery. Mystery.
He's going to help.
Is that mystery, right? Sure. Get your butt moving. Show the water. Show the water.
Go have a drink.
Go have a drink, yeah.
You want to go get some water? Hi, mystery.
So
key is to just kind of explain the water situation, and Geri mentioned it earlier. It's like we want the horses to move as much as possible.
So they're eating on the far area, which is it tends to be under in a shaded area or under trees. So they'll go there to eat. They have to come down here to drink, and then they play on the way back and to and forth. And you'll see some of these younger horses will be cantering around the track much of the time. They get to move a lot more than they used to, because previously they would just go to the hay bale, walk to the water, go back to the hay bale, but they're forced to walk around the track now in order to
Need an umbrella.
Horses, depending on what they have going on with them, will pick and choose. I have a horse that has a lot of, health issues. He came to me that way, and in the springtime, he will eat stinging nettles.
Yes, we have nettles.
Yeah,
Naturally.
but he's the only one of my horses that eats it. So for him, it's a medicine plant. I have another mare that has an arthritic knee. In the fall, she'll eat the pokeberries, and she'll eat them for just 3 days. And I did find out that when you eat pokeberry, people eat them. This is an Appalachian folk remedy. For rheumatoid arthritis and stuff like that. She ate it for 3 days. She had diarrhea for 1 day, but on day 5, she was walking really well. So really, when you take it, you are 3 days on or 5 days on, and then you take the same amount of days off. So it's on, off, on, off. But she ate the whole plant, and I just watched to see, well, what happens? She's the only one in my herd that eats it. She's the only one with arthritis. So there's a lot that we can learn from our horses by watching what they eat and when they eat it.
So, of course, we picked the time where a front is coming through. So, but in terms of planting, in particular medicinal plants, would there be some that would be recommended?
Well, here's a good way to do it, because if you plant it anywhere on the track where they are all the time, they're going to eat it up and it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
I planted what we call the medicine path. So all of and I don't turn them out there every once in a while. So the plants are high, and they get to graze on 45 minutes or an hour, and then you take them back off.
So you shift them off?
I shift them off. And it's only meant for them to poke around there to see if there's any medicines that they need and that they would like.
Like a sub-path off of
Yeah. Now I lost mine. We had to rearrange our place after Hurricane Irene, because we're still doing that. We have another place that we're going to start working on that in the spring. But and I do have another client that has a huge Paddock Paradise that goes around 30 acres. Yeah, and that's where my horses went after Irene to live for 3 months, so we put it all back together. But she has a medicine path there too. She liked what I did, so she gave it to her horses too. So they just open it up from time to time and let the horses browse and find things that they wouldn't normally find out in the pasture. Oh, I love that. I love that.
So, you ready to walk? All right. Basically,
You want me to carry that?
this is a big circle. So this funnels up from this watering area across this culvert. And we were forced by the topography. We tried to work with the land. In fact, what I did when I laid this out, I used Google Maps.
Yeah, a lot of people do that, and I recommend that. You can get a nice map of your property, and you can just start drawing on it to get an idea of how you want to start your Paddock Paradise.
Yeah, that's a bungee gate.
Watch out, everybody.
Over to the left.
Oops, all right. Come on, Bella.
Oh, the umbrella, yeah.
She's gonna come by.
Oh, so I wasn't the first one to invent that.
She wants to run by, but you don't
Yeah.
want to.
Come on, Bella. Come on, baby. There you go.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Boy, they're looking too. They're looking at the umbrella.
The footfall there. So, as you can see, this is a bit wider than the recommended width. Geri, I don't know if you want to speak to that. But, we felt that where we had work horses, then more large horses than typical.
Yeah.
That we wanted to have plenty of space.
I mean, whatever keeps the horses moving is whatever's going to work for that herd.
Yeah.
So there's no real cookie cutter approach to this. It has to work for you. And what's the beauty about it is you have the ability to change it and try other things. I've been doing this for 5 years with my horses, and I'm still changing it. I still have a whole new area that we're going to open up this year. So And it starts out small because it can be overwhelming. You want to do this for your horses and you want to do it now. But I started off with just closing gates and channeling them in one direction so that they had to go around this big long area to go to the water hole. And then it just kept going from there. So, and now I have what I have. I do have some in my PowerPoints a little bit about my layout too.
So, as you can see, it widens out here. There was a thought that we could do a feeding station here, and that may still
You probably could.
come along. And one of the things we do is we feed round bales right now, and we basically just put a whole round bale out. So we were talking with Geri today about the possibility of using slow feeders. It may be a situation where we would use, rather than feed out 3 round bales, would perhaps use 6 slow feeders at one time.
Yeah.
And so this might be a station for one of those.
The more places you have for them to go to eat, the more they're going to travel around, because you got a lot of horses here, and a couple are going to come here, and some more will push those ones down, and they'll go find another one, and they're constantly going to push them, move themselves all the way around the track.
So we're coming up now to our regular feeding station, and you can see the bales of hay here, and we located this. It opens up nicely, and it's under some shade trees, and the horses have liked to stand beside the road, and we theorize that part of that is due to the wind from the traffic.
Oh, the true kid that flies away. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we scrape this with the tractor periodically, and take the manure and hay that wasn't used up from. We do get perhaps 20% waste with this feeding method.
This is what I like about the hay slow feeders.
Yeah.
Because I actually feed less hay for 5 horses than I did for 4. I cut my hay bill by 1/3 just by using, I use 8 to 9 nibble nets, and they're all around the whole track.
Yeah.
And so they don't lay on it, pee on it, poop on it. I don't really waste any of it. The only stuff that they don't eat is stuff that's weedy or it's too stemmy, and it just falls out of the bottom of the bag, and we just put that in the compost.
For us, it's a management issue where we do feed out 3 round bales a day. It's just
And we have had them in round feeders, but they break them all.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so big, and it isn't even by being bad, it's by leaning into it, or, they're just always messing with stuff.
Yeah, once the pipe,
Then-
once they bend,
bent, then
it's
Yeah.
ruined.
And we've had about 7 of those that we've bought brand new, and they all said that they couldn't break them, and they broke them all.
Yeah.
So we...
Yeah, indestructible and draft horses.
Well, they need to test their product here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, Geri, because you mentioned that there is a website where that is mentioned, the different...
Oh yes, you can go to a website. It's Paddock Paradise /wet paint. And if it doesn't work, you can just Google, Paddock Paradise /wet paint. It's separate from Jamie Jackson's Paddock Paradise website, and it has a hay net comparison chart on it. So it will give you all of the different ones that are out there on the market, and they all have a star rating, their quality, how long they last, and people's experience with it, so you can, get the best bang for your buck. I use nibble nets. I know the woman that makes them. She actually usually gives them some to me to raffle off at some of the clinics I do. But I use her product, and I've gone through all 4 seasons with ice and snow and floods and everything, and I still have them all. This is my 4th season, 4th year now. So it's a very good product.
Yeah, another product I know that I use actually is Busy Horse, that they do nibble nets, and then we're looking though here to use the big round bale
Yeah, that's
nets,
Cinch
right?
Chicks makes those.
Yeah.
And I have some people that use those, and they just put the cinch around the whole thing and leave it loose out there. And after a while, the horses kind of roll it around, and they just keep eating at it. And you have to go out there and kind of pull the cinch out, pull it up so that it's tighter around the bale. They do warn that for horses that are shod, that it's not good to have nets because their shoes can get stuck in the nets.
Yeah. Well, all our horses now are barefoot. We do have shod horses in the wintertime. Those that might be working on ice will have ice shoes on, but typically...
They're not really allowed out here either in the winter. them.
Yeah, we
Down.
typically we feed closer to the barn. In the
Yeah,
wintertime.
they stay close. Because they have to run in down there, and it gets too icy up here. We have a lot of elderly horses and lame horses, and they play way too much.
So the other thing we've yet to do, and it's something that we're talking about today with Geri, is the introduction of some aggregate material
For footing.
for footing.
I mean, Dr. Bowker's always said the terrain that you want to ride your horse on is the terrain you're supposed to bed your horse on. So if you want to ride your horse on a gravel road, you need to expose their feet to gravel because they need to condition their feet for that. If you can't do that, that's where we come in with hoof boots. But really, ideally, if you want a gravel crunching, sound, barefoot horse out on the trail, you have to provide an environment that they live in that's similar to it. So you can do that by bringing in crushed run, pea gravel, sand, anything that you come across in on the trail. If it's out on your track, they're getting used to it. So you'll be able to go out on the trail and your horse's feet will be fine.
So one of the things we talked about earlier when we first did our walk around was the fact that I was under the impression that I would want to put bands of this material across the track so that they would be forced to walk on it. You mentioned giving them the option of walking on it.
I do, because not every horse has the ability to do
Right.
walking on the rocks. They'll get used to it. Some that have had really damaged, foundered feet, they may not do that. And so I like to give my horses the option. So we do a path that goes all the way around that's got the gravel on. It's easier for us when we're out there cleaning it and when we have mud season.
Yeah.
But the horses, I like to give them a choice.
So
In some places they don't. It's the smaller pea gravel, which is a little deeper, any horse can walk in that, even if they have problems with their feet, because it's cushy.
yeah. So the horses wouldn't then necessarily take the easier, softer way.
Not always.
No, so if they needed that, they would walk across the harder surface.
They do. I mean, the ones that don't mind, I mean, I have 3 horses that can just they never look down where they walk because they don't need to. But I have 2 that do.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, should we continue walking all around the whole track?
You could lose blood in your hands.
All right. You want to switch?
Yeah.
So this is the scratching tree here.
Down. This is the down.
Yeah, this is the dead scratching tree, so they all rub on this. Yeah.
My horses have some of those too.
Now, one thing we're starting to see is they're starting to gnaw on bark here, so
I have found that that's usually a mineral deficiency.
We have that we have a nutritionist that comes and analyzes their diets, and they all are above normal. In fact, we had to lower a lot of their food because it was almost toxic level for some of them anyway. But that, I've read that too. There's some element in it that they need or want.
Usually in pine trees, I've seen horses eat the pine needles, usually in its change of season, when we're going from fall to winter, and then when we're coming into spring. There's a high content of vitamin C in pine needles. Horses do basically produce their own, but sometimes they need to supplement it. I've seen older horses mostly do that.
So in a way, though, that's not a bad thing, because in nature, in the wild, they would have been out nibbling on branches, digging the soil for minerals.
Kill the tree.
Right. So no, the question.
Maples and oaks over here, though.
Yeah.
So the question though becomes, how can we provide that? I mean, can't we provide branches, for example, or logs?
If you want, if like I used to pick up pine branches after a storm, throw them in the back of my truck, and toss them into the track. And they would nibble on them. Whenever we cut down sumac trees, we throw them out there. And not only that, it helps actually wear their incisors that don't usually get that much wear. So, that's an important. It could also be that some horses are having TMJ issues and they're just using their teeth on the tree to bring that down so they can relieve the pressure on their TMJ. That's another option.
So the question then also becomes, what type of, because I just had this conversation with a client, what type of branches or logs can she put in? They are probably poisonous and barks and not so poisonous or more nutritious. Do you know a resource where people can look up what would be a good
I don't know it off the top of my head, but there are, if you just Google, poisonous things for horses,
Right.
the only thing that you have to avoid totally is black walnut.
Right. And cherry, right?
Well, yeah. But for the most part, I think, I throw pine in, sumac, and maple, that's all safe.
So any type of maple?
They like the maple because it's sugary.
Right, so any type, if it's red maple or sugar maple?
I would avoid red maple. That's not a good for horses either. Yeah.
So, okay. So sugar maple.
Red oak is not good. And certain types of locusts.
And sumac also.
Sumac's okay. I mean, my horses nibble on it.
Okay.
It's got a little sweetness to it, but they're small branches, and once they're all chewed up, we just throw them over the fence and burn them.
And I always throw the Christmas trees in and whatnot just to have them.
And they like them. They do.
So we've been squirting Thai hot sauce on them.
Do they like it?
Some of them do like it. Fanny, the biggest perpetrator, she wanted it more.
Yeah.
She loved it.
We were thinking that was going to prevent them from.
People use it for cribbing, and it doesn't work.
These girls are in their 30s.
Really? Wow. Well, they're small.
Yeah, they had a good working life too.
Yeah.
We find that when they have regular jobs,
Yep.
and they're not overworked, we have a couple teams of mares in their mid-30s. They don't even have their molars anymore.
Yeah.
That's what they use the hay for, is scratching their bellies.
Yeah, because they can't really eat
These
it
other
anymore.
mares are wicked.
Oh, you got a bunch of chickens. Come here, Piper.
So yesterday we put 3 bales out at the same time. This one's almost still whole. That one's almost entirely gone. And the one over the hill is 75% gone. And this is getting ready. We're really, this needs to have a machine come and push this up and gather it up, and we'll take it to the compost.
So when you have the person who tests, they just test the hay and the feed for, but you don't do any hair analysis or blood work on the horses to see what they're getting out of it.
Well, he can tell. Yeah, we don't do that only because it's an expense.
Yeah.
But there's measurements that he takes, and there's skin. You can tell a lot by the condition of their coat and their hooves, like what kind of deficiencies they have, and skin stuff. And you can see most of these guys are really pretty healthy. I mean, it's been a real challenge to learn how to take care of such a diverse herd and keep them all healthy. And Pullen has been amazing at helping us figure out how to do that. Get them all in the proper diets. Because giraffes, you may know, they really have special metabolic issues, where you really shouldn't feed them at all any sugar. And a lot of the ones we get have been fed a lifetime of it. So we've got to detox them from that, and there is a detox period they do go through. And then getting them into good diets, it takes them a long time. It takes sometimes a couple of years for them to settle in with a new...
And their foot will actually give you that. I mean, it takes a whole year to grow in a foot, a whole hoof from the top to the bottom. And sometimes if you had one that was really damaged, it takes 2 years before you really see a good healthy foot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a horse whose coffin bone practically came through the sole of his foot, and his rotation was like 33 degrees.
Leaves are pulling this.
But yeah, I mean, we see so many kinds of challenges with their health, and we try to do as much of it as we can. From really, really awful disorders with acupuncture and herbs. It's great. And they're barefoot trimming, and like you said, that teeth and the feet are like the most important things for us. As soon as they come in, that's what we start working on. Because those are the things that right, and that will give you the best solid foundation for building on health.
And with the Paddock Paradise,
helps is to create the movement.